St. George, the great martyr and trophy bearer, was born around the year AD 275 in Cappadocia, a region of Asia Minor known for its devout Christian communities. His father Gerondios was a distinguished officer in the Roman army and a secret Christian who was later martyred for his faith. His mother Polychronia was a noble and deeply pious woman from Lydda, modern-day Lord Israel. As he grew, George was gifted with intelligence, beauty, strength, and noble spirit. He joined the Roman army following his father's example and advanced quickly through the ranks due to his courage, fairness, and leadership. By his 20s, he had achieved the rank of tribune, commanding 1,000 men. He became known not only for his valor, but also for his kindness and compassion toward the poor and suffering. When the Emperor Diocletian began his infamous persecution of Christians around AD 303, he issued edicts requiring all subjects of the empire to offer sacrifices to the Roman gods. St. George, a man of deep and unwavering faith, immediately recognized the evil of this decree. Instead of hiding his belief, he appeared boldly in the imperial court and declared before the emperor and his assembled generals, "There is one Lord, Jesus Christ, and no other God besides him." His words caused astonishment and anger. Diocletian, furious that a high-ranking officer would dare to defy the empire's command, ordered that George be imprisoned and tortured until he renounced Christ. But George replied calmly, "No torment will separate me from the love of my God." The saint's sufferings began immediately. His body was stretched on a wheel fitted with sharp iron blades designed to tear his flesh apart. As the torture commenced, he prayed silently to Christ, and suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, touched him, and healed all his wounds before the astonished eyes of his executioners. The wheel shattered, and George stood unharmed, glorifying God. Many of those who witnessed this miracle, including soldiers and bystanders, abandoned idolatry and confessed Christ, only to be executed soon after. Enraged, Diocletian ordered new tortures. The saint was flogged with iron chains, thrown into a pit of quicklime, and forced to walk in red-hot iron shoes, but the power of God preserved him unharmed. When Diocletian accused him of witchcraft, George smiled and said, "It's not magic, but the power of my Lord Jesus Christ." Determined to humiliate him, the emperor brought George into the great pagan temple of Apollo and ordered him to sacrifice. The saint lifted his hands to heaven and prayed aloud. At that moment, a thunderous sound filled the air, and the idols of the gods collapsed and shattered into dust. The priests fled in terror, and the emperor was filled with rage. Seeking to expose him as a fraud, Diocletian summoned a famous sorcerer named Athanasius, who was skilled in poisons and dark arts. The magician prepared the deadly poison and offered it to George. Making the sign of the cross, the saint drank it calmly and remained completely unharmed. Athanasius, seeing this wonder, was struck to the heart. He fell before George, exclaiming, "Truly, there is no God but the God of the Christians." The emperor, furious that his own magician had converted, ordered Athanasius to be beheaded immediately. Thus the former sorcerer received the crown of martyrdom, his blood bearing witness to the truth of the faith he had once opposed. Diocletian, still unwilling to admit defeat, continued to devise new torments. Hoping to test George further, he pointed to the tomb of a man long dead and demanded, "If your Christ is truly God, raise this man to life." The saint knelt and prayed. The ground shook, the tomb opened, and the dead man rose alive, glorifying Christ. The entire crowd trembled, crying out, "Great is the God of the Christians." Among those who witnessed this miracle was Queen Alexandra, the wife of Diocletian. Her heart, moved by divine grace, could no longer remain silent. She approached the saint and proclaimed in front of all, "Blessed are you, servant of the true God. I too believe in your Christ, the King of heaven and earth." Diocletian, maddened with fury, ordered his soldiers to strike her down. However, before they could execute the command, Alexandra was imprisoned. While in her cell, she peacefully gave her soul to God, thus dying as a martyr for Christ without the sword. Her faith and courage would inspire generations of Christian women throughout history. After countless tortures and trials, the emperor realized that nothing could break the saint's faith. Finally, he condemned him to death by beheading. Before his execution, George requested a moment to pray. He lifted his eyes to heaven and said, "Lord Jesus Christ, in your hands I place my spirit. Forgive my enemies and grant peace to all who call upon your name." He was then beheaded outside the city walls of Nicomedia on April 23rd, 303 AD. After his martyrdom, St. George became one of the most beloved saints in Christendom. The grace of God continued to work through him with countless miracles. The most famous of these is the miracle of the dragon. In the city of Libya, a monstrous serpent terrorized the people, devouring animals and humans alike. When the king's daughter was chosen as the next victim, St. George appeared, mounted on a white horse, made the sign of the cross, and slew the dragon with his spear, saving the girl in the city. This story became a symbol of the victory of Christ over Satan and all evil. Many other miracles followed through his intercession. The miracle of the captive soldier. A Christian soldier held prisoner in a distant land prayed to St. George for help. In an instant, he was miraculously transported home, still holding the cup of water he had been drinking. The holy spring of Lida. At his shrine in Lidas, a spring of water began to flow near his tomb. The faithful who drank from it were healed of various illnesses, and many miracles were recorded. The protection of soldiers. Throughout history, soldiers and warriors have invoked St. George in battle. Numerous accounts tell of the saint appearing on horseback, clad in white armor, leading Christian armies to victory. Healings and deliverance. Oil from the lamp that burns before his icon has brought healing to the sick and comfort to those in distress. He has appeared in dreams and visions to strengthen, console, and protect believers. The church calls him trophy bearer because he bore victory not only in battle, but more importantly over sin, falsehood, and death. His courage inspired countless Christians to remain steadfast in their faith, even unto martyrdom. Through his life, suffering, and miracles, St. George stands as a shining example of the power of faith, the triumph of love over fear, and the eternal victory of Christ in those who remain steadfast to the end.